back to another episode of the LastGameHunter, and today we're going to look at the Aorus, which is another Gigabyte product, the B550M Aorus Pro. Now guys, moving into the 5000 series boards, you will know that CPU limitations are going to start, and that will definitely go from 3rd gen and higher for this product line. And of course, this will probably be the last series before DDR5. Now, to look over this package, first off, we're going to just look at, like I've said many times before, if you're buying the Aorus product, you do get a real manual. If you just buy the Gigabyte version, let's say the step-down layout of this board, maybe a few less tings or bells and whistles, but you have to go online. There'll be a pamphlet, something like this, with a barcode to scan to go to their website to get the driver support or needed layouts of the board. Now, you get a disc with the drivers and everything. Of course, like normal, you probably don't need any of this at this point due to Windows 10 being great at doing driver updates and so on, and installing most of your hardware for you. What I do recommend, of course, when you're doing a brand new board is if you do use these drivers or Windows auto install drivers, then please check for updates. Right click your installed drivers in your control panel and definitely check for updates. That is just a tip of the week. So after that, there is not going to be any backplate because the backplate's built in on this board. You get a couple Sata cables. Looks like in this box I have 2 sets of, so I have 4 in here. Not sure if that's normal, but they are in here. And we have your ARGB, some sort of ARGB cable in here as well, which is kind of interesting. Like anything, the standard layout of the box. I'm not going to get into the box, of course, by any means. And then we have the motherboard. Now, just looking at the motherboard here like this, one thing that I like about this micro ATX is the fact that there is 4 DDR4 slots, not 2. To me, that's very important in any build. Usually the Aorus, unless it's an ITX board, is 4, whereas the Gigabyte version of it would probably be 2. So there's something to watch out for if you're buying and you want to save a few bucks. Make sure you're happy with just having 2 slots if you're doing that. Of course, your AM4 socket, your screw-on posts here for your, I'm not going to say factory coolers, because factory coolers, you remove these and you screw on a factory cooler like so onto the board itself. So that is your simple layout here. You have a NVMe with a aluminum heatsink, and then you have a secondary right here with no aluminum heatsink. Now, I do have something coming up to talk about with those because there are some pretty cool things you can do here. PCI Express, and of course this is PCIe 4.0 with a PCIe Mini and a secondary PCIe Express port. Not using these unless you use a capture card like an Elgato or something to move on. Now, here you have 4 SATA ports on the side here. We'll do a quick overview of the board after, just for a look. Now, that isn't needed as much unless you are using a case that actually does have a optical drive, or you're using physical or older SATA styles. When you use your NVMEs, like whether you put a couple of 1 terabytes in here or a 512, a 1 terabyte, or so on, usually now we're putting like a 256 here, a 1 terabyte or more here to hold your games and moving on. Of course, the upgradability is still there to do so. 24-pin power with your 8-pin or 8-phase pin power plug-in up here. Your system fan, there's one here. You have your CPU optional fan header here, your CPU fan main. So optional you would probably use for a water pump and so on. You have a digital LED here and your normal, so ARGB and RGB. Over here you have another system fan. So now we have 4 fan headers that we see so far. Nice thing about the Aorus board versus also a normal Gigabyte board, there'll probably be 1, maybe 2 extra fan headers. You have another RGB, not ARGB, another one down in here. decent audio. I mean, most audio built in now is pretty decent. This, you know, general overlook, I do like the way they did this here with the BRM. It is well done. The solid capacitors make me happy. I guess we don't really see much of the not solid capacitors anymore. And of course, a heat shield on your, I'm going to say, I guess, South Bridge with the Aorus logo on it. So down here you have your header for all of your case hookups, whether it be power, reset, hard drive, LED light, activity light, so on. A USB 3.2, so that is your, we'll call it USB 3 header right here to go out to the main case. 2 normal USBs here. Another fan here. So we are actually sporting, what did I say before, 4? We have 5 fan headers on this case right now, or on this motherboard. So well equipped for a micro ATX, guaranteed here. COM port, don't think you're really going to see it anymore. That's a TPM. Now, something important moving forward with Windows 11, people, if you don't have a TPM on your motherboard, technically Windows 11 is supposed to not work. Now, I do have a friend in the business that is going to be sending me a copy of Windows 11 for me to review and test. And I'm going to find out by using an older board and a newer board and see how much truth there is to this. Now, there are ways around it. Not going to get into Windows 10 right now, but there are ways around it. So here we have the TPM as we were talking about. Right here we have another LED connector of some sort. I think it's still just a standard, but it seems to be boxed, which is kind of neat. And right here we have another RGB and ARGB. And you'll notice this little tiny thing right here. I believe that is a new setup for Gigabyte fan. Not 100%, I'll have to re-look at that and I'll get back to that just in case. But I have seen that on a ITX board. If you need another fan header, they had an adapter. Didn't seem to be in this package, but it is something that is available. And then there's your audio header here. It's a quick overview, of course, here. Beautiful. We have fiber optic on board and your full 5.1 or 7.1 surround. Mic input, line out, line in, and so on. So you got your typical audio here, but the key is fiber, as I use a Yamaha amp here in the studio if I want to have some out audio. 90% of the time, of course, headphones nowadays. You have your USB-C here, and which I did not see on the board. So on this model, there is no USB-C header to plug into for out. That is now 100% because I don't see it. So pretty obvious connection and I don't see it. So just keep in mind, if you have USB 3 on your case, this is not the board that's going to hook up to that without some sort of an adapter. So this is your USB-C at the back. So you do have one if you need it for Oculus or whatever, so on down the road. This is your USB 3.2, your gigabit LAN. I think this one is up to 2 gigabits. I'm not 100%. I'll double check that. It might be my other board and I'm mixing it up. We have a Q flash button here. So if you use this white one, which actually can also be a normal USB, if you have a BIOS flash and you can't access your board, so you can't use Gigabyte software or whatever, you would plug your thumb drive in here, press this button, and it will actually flash the BIOS for you without the system even running. So a pretty amazing setup. Just needs power, that is it. USB 3.2 here again. I believe red means powered all time, not 100%, but that's what I believe that is. 2 more 3.2s here. You actually have a display port out and an HDMI out. Now keep in mind that's only going to work on 4000G processors, 5000G processors, not 3000G processors. Keep that in mind. And then you have 4 regular 2.0s, which I call your keyboard, your webcam, that kind of hookup pieces here. Anything that needs any speeds, you hook up down here. So plenty of normal accessory hookup, which is really, really nice. Of course, we're just going to do a quick show here. There's your 8-phase connector, system fan. Again, over here we have more system fans. Well, system fan, you could use this as one, or a pump, and your CPU cooler. So the gray one is the one you would hook up if you're just going to hook up an air cooler and you want it completely taken care of properly. Digital ARGB and your RGB. Another system fan right here. 4 ports for your DDR, 4, 24 pin, your standard AM4 socket. You have your NVMEs like I had talked about, one with a heatsink, one without. Of course, bias battery, pretty standard. And your pretty standard hookups down here that we have already talked about. It is just absolutely a beautiful board for its design. We have 4 ports here, as I was talking about before. And, you know, in my builds, I don't use them at all anymore, unless someone requests that they need major hard drive space, and that changes everything, of course. But for me, I run a server in my furnace room that allows me to store my extra data there instead of having to have it on my editor or my gaming rig. All aluminum, very nice heatsink on the VRM. This is all aluminum as well, and you can see the adhesive, the double-sided heat pad, thermal pad here, which I expect to be, yeah, there it is there, you can see it on the inside here, so it's pretty thick. They do a great job. I've never been very upset with a Gigabyte Aorus product ever. Again, with any big brand name and gaming boards, chances are they're going to be built very decent and very similar, so that is really cool. Another thing when you're plugging into on your RAM, and this is really nice that they put A1, A2, B1, B2. If you are going to run this board with just 2 DIMMs, and you want your dual channel, or it may not post, maybe there's going to be an issue, it wants you to use A2, this one here, and it wants you to use B2 as your 2 RAM slots. So other than that, after that, if you're adding 2 more, it doesn't matter, of course, because you're just filling it, but it would be secondary and secondary for your first 2 slots of RAM. This is an overview of the B550M Aorus Pro motherboard by Gigabyte. It is an M-ATX factor that you would use in a case for either space saving or just not having or allowing more room in your case for either airflow, radiators, power supply, or just more space in general. It's just a beautiful non-space taker without having to go to an ITX platform and losing key features. That's my opinion. Other than that, on that note, this was a open box. I was a little worried about it. I got it for a really sweet deal, so I took it anyway. And I just had a 3600 processor come in to test in it, and it is working perfectly fine. So I'm happy to say that I didn't lose any money there, so that's great. It is not a sponsored video. I bought the board. Basically, any Aorus board that I do a open box or review or talk of are bought by me. They are not in any which way at this point sponsored by Gigabyte. So guys, I hope this helps out if you're looking for the B550M Aorus Pro, giving you some key features, some nice layout to take a look at, and you know, till next time guys, thank you for watching, stay safe, game over.